All right. Mic check. I'm good. So I'm Max Ceron. Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Podcast. Today we have a really cool guest. Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and as always, looking all over Canada for those gems and diamonds in the roughs. We're always finding fun people to interview. Today, I got, and I'm going to butcher it, Guy Seguin with us from Algonquin College.
You
How
got
you doing, Guy?
I'm great.
Not bad. You know, Guy, I have a bunch of friends named Guy, and they're all French, and I try to learn French from them because I have a Spanish name, and I always try to get people to say my name properly because I usually get like the English version of my name, not the Spanish version. But hopefully I got yours okay.
Yeah, you did well.
All right, Guy, so how you doing today, buddy?
Things are good. You know, today's my prep day. Sitting at home, sitting on the computer a little bit outside of the shop. It's a nice change of pace sometimes.
So prep day. Walk us through a prep day. What is it you're prepping today for what your students will be doing?
Well, right now I'm pretty fortunate because all my teaching hours are bulked on 2 days. So I got about 2 8-hour days, and then I'm also the program coordinator. So there's time allocated for doing that. So that's kind of my week. But today I'm just building some theory content. Doing some marking on our LMS, our learning platform. Going through some assignments, stuff like that, and just using a brief course outline that I like to use, and it's really just a piece of paper with some points on it that I'm gonna use to teach. They taught us how to build formal ones, but they don't work for me. So yeah, I do what works for me.
So you teach at the Algonquin College in Ottawa. What is it you teach? What's the course that you teach?
So the course is it's a post-secondary program, and it's called Welding and Fabrication Techniques. It's a 1-year certificate program. So students go for 1 calendar year, 3 semesters, and after a year, they're ready to weld. Some go and weld. Some pursue it a little bit further. Some go into other trades. Some don't even take welding. Some are hobbyists.
Mm-hmm. So in the welding and fabrication techniques, that's, Ontario, for the people are across Canada, has some very interesting things that going on in Ontario that are sometimes confusing. Apprenticeship isn't as strong in Ontario, so they don't have like that apprenticeship guideline hammering on everything like out in the West, where these are the classes, these are the courses, these are the only names you're allowed to use because otherwise it doesn't align with apprenticeship. So a welding and fabrication techniques class, do you get hours towards apprenticeship from this course towards welding or metal fab or both, or how does that work out?
Yeah, you do. So I mean, and I totally agree with you because I actually went to school in Alberta. I was out welding in Alberta for a while, and apprenticeship is strong in the West. And however, if you don't have any experience and you're looking to get into this trade, well, where do you go? Because in order to get an apprenticeship, you need a job. It's a bit of a relationship between the ministry, employer, and then the schooling. So that brings you to a post-secondary program, and that's what we offer. So because our program goes above and beyond that first level apprenticeship, we're actually mapped out to 2 years of apprenticeship. So when a student comes out, it doesn't mean they automatically get handed a certificate saying that they completed their first 2 levels of apprenticeship. However, if they do decide to sign up, then when they go to do their schooling portion, they're able to be exempted from the first 2 levels. Yeah, so we're mapped out to that.
Okay, cool. And where does the fabrication part fit into the course then? Because you're not allowed to duplicate hours, right? So, if these are allocated towards your path of level 2 welding, do you fabrication is just like the theory end of it, or do you get? I mean, I know it's tricky. We have a metal fab course here in Sass Poly that is also like the students are like, well, I'm a fabricator, am I a welder? It's like, well, kind of both, but kind of neither. Like it depends on what you want to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's where I'm sort of in the process right now of doing a curriculum change. And Max, you sat on our focus group a little while ago, and the fabrication end of it is, we start at the basics, we start at the beginning. So we're kind of tied in between, like, do we spend more time in fabrication, or do we teach them how to weld, right? And that's always been sort of the balance. And it's now after doing some pack meetings and focus groups and stuff like that, I think employers are looking for, those transferable skills, like really just reading a tape or using machinery, really mastering the torch, things like that, things that an entry level welder would have to do, or which would be expected of them. So, we start at the beginning, reading a tape, using punches, drilling, tapping, things like that, doing some small fabrications. We're bending some stuff, we're rolling, things like that. So it's small weldments. If we're to put it on a scale of, basic, intermediate, advanced, we're somewhere between basic and intermediate on those fabrication. And then the rest of the time is spent for, welding and welder qualification. There's a lot of TIG shops in our area, a lot of mom and pop. So Pat came to us and said, you know what, we need more time with TIG. So we do more stainless and aluminum, things like that.
Well, a lot of what's needed is locally kind of biased, which is, I think, important. I think that's a good thing. Depending on where you are in the province, like you go take welding in Alberta, you're learning pipe in level 1. You're not learning pipe in level 1 in anywhere else in the country. That's not a thing. You come to Saskatchewan, you're learning a lot of structural. You're coming at a level 1 with like all your stick and your flux core and your MIG tickets out, all position done, level 1. Like it's a requirement because we're so heavy in structural manufacturing and mining, right? So every area's got their local industry needs, right, and what they want. But what you said there about basic tool use, I think is the money shot. I think, when you look at basic, intermediate, and advanced, there's almost like an underneath basic, which is I'm not going to break the machine, but I know what the machine is. I'm not going to break it, but I'm not real good at it, which is valuable because what happens is that often, young people go out to a shop and there's machinery and they have no idea what it is. And employers don't like that. Employers don't like that they come, oh, you don't even know what a shear is? Like you went to school and you don't even know what that is? And it's like, and then students feel dumb and then they like, that doesn't feel good. But then again, you don't have the time as an educator. You know this. You don't got the time to make every student understand every piece of equipment awesome. Sometimes it's just enough. Do you know how to not cut your finger off? These are the safety guards. This is where you got to be careful. The rest you're going to have to figure it out.
Absolutely. But I mean, the biggest thing I think is exposure, really, right? And I'm glad I'm open to this because I got 2 young kids at home, and it's, what kind of exposure are we giving them? And I heard in your other podcast, talking about what somebody was exposed to in high school, or and I know trades and welding are coming back, and the foundation and CWB have really done a lot to sort of bring all that back in across Canada. So even if we can't get them a TSSA 6G coming out of our program, well, let's show them at least so that they can see what an open route is. They can they can use a little bit of that 60-10. And you're exactly right, because when I went to school in Alberta, all we did was open route. And then, we come and teach here in Ontario, and it's a lot of, or I guess I should say in our area, again, it's a lot of structural plates, a lot of flux core, and a lot of stick, right? Some MIG spray transfer, but a lot of flux core, a lot of stick welding, things like that. And then the other side is your stainless and aluminum, which are usually in-house qualifications, or there's some CWB, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because in Saskatchewan, like your stainless CWBs are money. Money. Potash mines, right? Like potash mines, huge stainless consumers. I mean, and that's what in my career I never learned how to weld aluminum properly because I was like, when the hell would I ever see aluminum? You don't see aluminum underground. It would last like 8 seconds. You know what I mean? Like it would just get it would get chewed up and done, right? And that's and then when I became a teacher, it's like, oh well, you gotta teach students how to do like high frequency aluminum now. It's like, I think I remember doing that 20 years ago. Like, in the can someone show me how to set this machine again? You know, like. But let's talk about your career. Like, you teach now in Ottawa, and then you've already said that you went to school in Alberta for welding. But where are you from? Like, where did you start, and how did this whole journey like get started?
Yeah, so I grew up just outside of Ottawa, about an hour and a half, and it started in high school. It really did. It started with oxyacetylene, and that's about all the exposure I had to welding in an automotive class. We didn't have a welding shop. There were a few booths in the transportation technology course that we were taking. And once I graduated, it was time to go to work, and I didn't want to work in a fast food place. And I knew that I wasn't going away to post-secondary or university right away. I just wasn't sure. So I took a job in a structural shop called Lockweld out in Long Sault, Ontario. And it's owned by, that building's actually owned by Laframboise now. But yeah, yeah, and that's where I worked. They put me on a drill press and a giant grinder, and they said go. And I did that for I think it was about 9 months until I threatened to quit because I just couldn't do it anymore. So I remember my first flux core tack because it was, okay, well, we're going to get you fitting. And I thought it was a big deal. Like that was, going from the drill press to the welder right away.
Yeah.
Was, it was a big deal. And I remember prepping my CWB plate and practicing. Actually, back then it was what we were doing. They still have it, the fillet weld test, but they called it a tacking test.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same idea.
They still have a tack ticket. They still got one.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I see the fillet weld test a lot, but so yeah, I was playing around with that, and then I'd gone overseas a little bit, went and did some traveling, Southeast Asia, and when I got back, I knew I had to do something, and I ended up in post-secondary. I took business.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So welding, business, and did 2 years of that. And then it was straight to Alberta welding again. So I took a job.
Why Alberta? Why'd you make the jump there?
Well, I had a friend that was pipelining, and to be honest, like I'm young. Obviously money is attractive. I seen the kind of money he was making, and I'd love to travel. So I hadn't been out west yet. So we hopped in the car. We drove 41 hours straight to Wainwright, Alberta. And
good old military base, Wainwright,
Yeah. Hearing those bombs go off in the middle of the night.
That's artillery base, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, that's when it all started. And so I had some experience in this structural shop back in Ontario, but I went from making I can't even remember, let's just say $8 an hour back then to $20 an hour in Alberta, so again, I was a big shot.
Mm-hmm.
So that felt really good. And the camaraderie I got on the pipeline, everything I learned on that translated later on into my career as a welder.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know that the oil patch is not consistent work 12 months out of the year. For some people it is. So that wasn't my experience. We'd usually work about 8 months and then we'd get laid off during breakup. And I would take a framing job, or I would take a little welding job, and that's where I gained a little bit of experience in the fab shop, things like that, as a MIG welder, and work in a pipe shop. And then I'd go back to pipelining, and then so I was out there for just over 5 years. And my wife, I'm still with right now, decided, hey, let's go back home. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to go back home. I loved it out there. I was happy, but it was time to start a family.
And
I
you
was
don't want to
told.
have babies in Alberta, no, and then come out with cowboy hats. You got to be careful.
Yeah, sure, for sure. Well, I think she was a little tired of like just I was on the road a lot,
Yeah,
and
100%.
I'd come home for sometimes I'd come home for 3 days, and then I'd be gone again, and then so that we were doing that routine a lot. And I mean, again, I love that lifestyle as young. Um, an apartment, a car, and I didn't even have a car payment. It was easy, tons of disposable income back then.
Yeah.
So th-
Well,
so
and
then
it's very interesting because that bubble that existed, it's come and gone a few times. I'm old enough to have seen that bubble come by around 3 times now. And for some reason, Ontario has this, like, if you're gonna go somewhere, and I'm talking welding specific, if you're gonna go somewhere other than Ontario to weld, you're gonna go to Alberta. It's like that's it. That's like there's no, like, BC and Saskatchewan don't exist. Like they're not even on the map. It's just Alberta. And I literally have a friend right now from Ontario that just moved to Regina for a girl. Okay. And she's a wonderful girl. She's got a great job. And he's a Red Seal welder. And he was getting paid peanuts because they don't pay very well in Ontario right now for Red Seals. And out here in Saskatchewan, like, they pay really well. So he gets here and he's like, I want to go to Fort McMurray. I'm like, why do you want to go to Fort McMurray? And he's like, well, that's where all the money is. I'm like, yeah, like 12 years ago.
yeah, exactly.
There's like, I don't even think there's work there right now, honestly, dude. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, really? And I was like, it's still decades later, people just talk about the boom in Northern Alberta. But like, I mean, he was like, oh, I want to make at least 35 to 40 bucks an hour. I was like, dude, that's like any shop in Saskatchewan right now will pay you 40 bucks an hour. Like, that's like minimum wage right now, dude. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, you don't have to go anywhere. You're
You
absolutely
know?
right. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. My students are asking a lot, and I think there's some work out there. Again,
There's always some, yeah.
I'm not as familiar with the market right now or what's going on out there, but again, the problem is you got to be there. You have to
You got to go there. Yeah.
You have to go there, and you have to get yourself out there. Some people try and apply for jobs, at a distance, and you know what? It's my experience. There's been some jobs that are very clicky.
Yeah, it's boots on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. So, but if you can get out there and you can do it, then it's life changing at a young age. It's great.
Well, and
great
it's
work.
beautiful. I don't think people realize how remote it is up there. Like once you get up to Grand Prairie, Grand Center, Fort McMurray, then on the other side you got Cold Lake. You got that whole northern region of Alberta, where there's lots of money, lots of oil, mines, pulp mills. There's everything. Um, you're way up there. Like it's not like, oh yeah, it's just gonna be a day trip to Edmonton. That's you're way up there.
You're absolutely right. We worked in well, we stayed in Hinton, but we did some work up in Grand Prairie, Fox Creek. Those are getting some pretty remote areas. And our drive into the lease is an hour. On an old logging road.
Yeah.
Right? It's an hour and a half in, an hour and a half out, and it's long days, and it's the work's there, but it comes with the, like, there's a lifestyle too. It's not just the work. Like you need to be able to sustain that lifestyle. Can you eat out of a gas station 3 days a week sometimes?
Yeah.
If you're not prepared. Can you stay in a hotel for
weeks
for
at
a whole
time.
month, weeks at a time, and it's like Groundhog Day. So
It is. I remember being on the road for weeks on end, and you have no idea what day it is. Like, and you're pulling 16-hour shifts. Sometimes they say 12s, but you're there 16s, and you want to be there 16s because you're raking in the double time.
Yeah.
So you get off, you go to a Denny's at like 8 in the morning after doing a 16 shift all nighter. You're trying to order a beer at Denny's at 8 in the morning for supper because you don't even know what time it is. Like you don't even know what day of the week it is, and you're just like, and you get paid weekly, right? Like with all these jobs, you get paid on the week. So you get in your 3-4K every week, and you just have no concept of anything. Like it's just like all like magic or something. Like
That's a really good analogy, actually, because I literally thought I was dreaming on my first paycheck, with the
Hmm.
subsistence that they give you and everything else. Like we were renting, we had a house with 5 guys, and I think our rent was $500 a month, and we're raking in 160 a day tax free. So that's just
Yeah,
that's just your sub. That's not your.
that's just your sub. Yeah.
Oh,
I've heard they
it's
got rid of sub on most jobs in LOAs. They've cut back apparently on all that stuff. I talk to friends that are out on the road still to this day, and they say that it's not this like those days are gone. Those days of making that kind of money, they're gone. There's still really good money out there. Like I heard Kitimak's paying big money out in BC. There's all these big money jobs out there, but they're not paying the LOA. They're not paying the travel time. They're not paying like it was different era. Like
yeah,
the early 2000s, there was like it was just like people throwing. Like I remember work bonuses were trips to Cuba. Like the whole crew would get a trip to Cuba from the boss at the end of the month, and everyone would leave on their final shift onto a plane to go to Cuba for 5 days. That was paid for. Like what? Like
amazing,
that's over.
amazing.
That's over now, right? Like
Yeah. My experience is there was always somebody who spoke up against, because is what would happen is the big companies would take a portion of the sub, because the big oil companies pay the sub to the smaller
hmm
pipeline companies, and then the pipeline companies would take a cut of that. And there was always somebody that would speak up, and unfortunately he would lose his job, but the rest would benefit from it.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that's I had no clue it was those days were gone. Jeez. That means we're getting older.
Yeah, we are getting older when the systems get tighter. And like, I mean, nobody likes the bust part. Everyone likes the boom, right? But what happens is that when the bust hits, so many of those people, friends of ours that made huge money, didn't plan, didn't put away, didn't save, didn't buy. And like, I mean, they really were hurting later. And then they go back to wherever they came from and they're $30 an hour is not good enough anymore. And that's too bad. That's too bad because to most of the world, $30 an hour is pretty damn good. But to a welder who's making 75 an hour for the last 3 years, it sure seems like a punch in the throat. You know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
it's kind of a different perspective. You got to look at it. Like I mean, everyone takes that shot when you start teaching. Once you start teaching, you got to look at your income in a different way because now it's a lifestyle choice, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely a pay cut in the beginning, especially, you're just starting out. Maybe you don't have, and it's all a formula at post-secondary college. It's just a
Hmm.
formula, and there's pay grades and all this stuff. And which if we want to fast forward a bit, I come back to Ontario, and I worked for a year before I started teaching, and I took a job with the laborers union. So driving piles and
Hmm.
splicing piles and stuff like that, and working that. And then um, my wife had seen that I wasn't really all that happy, and she'd asked me if I wanted to, if I had ever considered teaching, and it was a firm no, like with aggression almost.
Why?
because
Why so
because
angry?
because there was no way I was standing up in front of a classroom, and
Hmm.
sharing that. I could do it one on one and stuff. But so, anyways, I think she'd like submitted my resume or something, because I got a call from the coordinator at that time, like, hey, I've been emailing you. Little do I know it's going into my junk mail. And so, hey, do you want to come and do you want to come and teach a couple hours on a weekend? We have a weekend intake that we've started, and we want you to sort of, be there on the weekends. And so I did that for 2 years, still working. So I quit my job with Launa, and I took a job in a fab shop. And thankfully, the gentleman supported my schedule, because I started taking some hours during the week, and
Hmm.
it just started growing. And this was the gravy. This was like, I don't know, like the dessert. I was just
Yeah.
loving it. I was loving teaching. I was just loving connecting with the students, and that just grew until eventually I there was a full-time position that come up, and I didn't get it. I didn't get it, but I interviewed, and I gained a bunch of experience from it. And I looked at that, and I said, you know what, the next position is mine. Like, I'm gonna
Hmm.
do, like, I went right to the chair and the dean, and was like, what do I need to do to
to get in
secure this.
here.
Yeah. So I went back to school. Teachers college wasn't an option for me just because I have a young family, growing, got to be home and stuff like that. But I seen this program offered at the University of PEI, and it was a master's program in education. And I'd already taken a program at the college, which was a certificate called TAL, Teaching Adult Lifelong Learners, and that supported my resume along with my Red Seal and all that to get accepted into this master's program. So that was about 2.5 years of online speedy learning. Everything is condensed, and some courses were 2 weeks long. They're supposed to be I think 4 months crammed into 2 weeks. Imagine that, eh?
Holy.
And yeah, so it was speedy, and it was short-term pain, for long-term gains, because whenever I think I had a couple courses left, couple credits to do, and the full-time position came up again. And this time I was ready,
Good. So,
And
the master's path, I know a lot of people that have taken it later in their lives, to kind of bump their career to that next level, which I always, support that, whatever it takes to get you to the next level. One of the biggest gripes I've heard from people taking the master's programs is that they're crazy expensive. Like some of them are only 2 years, some of them are a year, but I've heard anything from 60 to 100K, and it's like, no, that can't be right. Like I thought I seen one online for like 20K, which still seems really expensive for like a year, but I guess you pay 16K or 15K for a year of welding, so it's probably average. Like I don't know.
I'll be honest, this was nowhere near that.
Yeah,
I mean, I have some friends that did their MBA in Spain, and they paid something like 100K, but no,
that's crazy. Yeah.
this was 10 grand.
Really? That's
It
a
was
good
10.
deal.
Yeah, it was 10,000. Yeah. And I mean, inflation, things may have changed now, but it's
Yeah, but I
somewhere
mean,
around
if
that.
that gets you in the door to like this tier, like I mean, this tier of work for teaching, it's very unique. A lot of people say they want to be teachers, but it's another thing to be a teacher. Not everyone's cut out for it. A lot of people try and don't do it. And honestly, some of the best teachers I know are people that would have never wanted to be a teacher, never thought about being a teacher, and kind of fell backwards into teaching and loved it. You know what I mean? It's kind of the way it works out. But I think it's because, first of all, to be a teacher, you have to be able to admit how little you know right off the top. Like straight up ego check 1000 in the face. You think you know welding? Try being a welding teacher. Within the first semester, these 18-year-old kids will have you running for your life because you realize how little you freaking know. You know what I mean? Like
That's it right there. You nailed it, Max. That's like ego check, because you're standing up there, and especially in your beginning, you got eggshells on your butt, on your, what am I allowed to say that? I
yeah,
almost
yeah,
said anyways. And
yeah.
you're up there, and again, you have every question being asked to you from every angle, and especially teaching the country kids. Oh
Mhm.
boy, because they come in with a little bit of background. Some of them were taught by their fathers or their uncles or
Yeah,
their grandfathers, and they
and they
know
were all taught totally wrong, but they're convinced.
exactly. So I just, you know what I did? I told myself one day, I was like, you know what? It's okay to be wrong.
Mhm.
You know what?
Mhm.
And the other thing is that you've got like 15 years experience here. You actually know how to weld. You know a lot more than they do,
Yeah.
right? So it was with those two things that kind of settled it a little bit.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
get your head in the book. Get back in the books. Learn. Like those. Whenever a student asks you something and you don't know, then it's like, well, you're doing homework tonight, or you're in the office with all the other instructors, being like, so when you mix 309 with 304, what exactly does happen? Like,
gold.
yeah, turns to lead. Everyone turns to lead. That's all you need to know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you started teaching? When you first got that first gig?
Okay, so I was 30, I guess I'd be 33.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's pretty young to get into the teaching game, right?
yeah, 30. Let's see here. Well, I've been at it for 42. Yeah. So it's about 9 years now. I'm in my 9th year. So
Okay, wow. And
yeah,
how do you feel about it? Like your progression as a teacher, over the last, 9 years.
I mean, I'm just the type of person that needs change. And, don't think I don't weld because I'm always welding. I'm always
Yeah,
fabricating. Some of my teachers own their own. Our teachers own their own businesses, and
yeah.
we're going to work with them when they need help. And that's my biggest thing right there. And I'm
Staying on the tools.
yeah, constantly burning plates. Burning pipe, even though we don't teach it. Sometimes, just showing a demo. But yeah, we need to be evolving. We need to be staying up to date with the times.
Relevant. Yeah.
We got to stay relevant because things are changing. Jobs are being created in the future that we don't know what they're going to be like. So we're trying to teach students that for jobs that might not yet exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the way technology is going today. So it's really important to just stay connected with the pack, and outside of your area as well, like what's going on out west, what's going on out east.
Mm-hmm.
The Canadian Welding Bureau has been great for supporting, educators conference, things like that. And, it's just good to network with everybody and see what's going on, because I see some teachers get stagnant sometimes. And, let's hope I don't become like that. Got to stay interested, got to
That is
stay
a fear.
in
I
the
have
game.
that conversation with lots of friends. I know some instructors that to the day they retired, they were amazing. They retire in their 70s and they're still on top of it. And the new machine comes by, Lincoln and Ferroni and Miller, they're always keen to come by the school with the new machine and show it off. And the cool instructors are always on that. They're on that. They make sure that, oh, hey, Lincoln, you want to come by? Yeah, come by. This is a day. You get all the students together. You grab a bunch of plate and let's play with the new machine and figure it out. Get the demos in. But then you come across instructors that just lose it. They just don't care. They just don't want to. And you don't want to ever be like that. But you wonder, how does it happen? You know,
Mm.
then is there a day that it's like, is there that one student that just drains the life out of you? Like, let's hope not, eh?
It's the many students.
Yeah. Yeah, but for all of those students, and there's always those awesome ones that just light up your day, you know what I mean?
Yeah, those are the ones that make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I heard something cool the other day. It's like we're, as an institute, we're filtering. you know we're not turning
Mhm.
on the tap. We're not just turning on the tap and producing, thousands of welders a year in Canada, right?
Mhm.
Because not every student knows what they want to do. I think the average is like 3 different careers or 3 different
Pathways,
pro
yeah.
pathways. And I think that's important too, right? Just because you're gonna get different kinds. You're gonna get all kinds. And it's our job to sort of, open it up on day one and say, hey, listen, this is the trade, right? Let's figure out your suitability for it, instead of like trying to mold the trade to them. It's
Yeah. This is what it is. Where do you fit? Or for how long? Like, I mean, I've had some fantastic welding students get into welding, crush welding, and then leave. That's fair. Rock it, do what you got to do, right? Like,
yeah, it's another tool for the toolbox, though, right?
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
You're moving on.
All right. Well, this is a good time for us to take our break for commercials. What we're going to do is we're just going to take a quick break here for our sponsors and advertisers. And then we'll be back here on the CWB Association podcast with Guy from Algonquin College.
The CWB Association is new and improved and focused on you. We offer a free membership with lots of benefits to anyone interested in joining an association that is passionate about welding. We are committed to educating, informing, and connecting our workforce. Gain access to your free digital publication of the Weld magazine, free online training, conferences, and lots of giveaways. Reach out to your local CWB Association chapter today to connect with other welding professionals and share welding as a trade in your community. Build your career, stay informed, and support the Canadian welding industry. Join today and learn more at CWBAssociation.org.
And we are back here on the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and I'm here with Guy Seguin. Seguin. Right? Seguin.
Seguin. It's like the hockey player Seguin, right? Like.
Well, that doesn't help me if I say your name wrong. I'm just gonna say their name wrong.
Guy Lafleur. At least it's Guy, right?
Yeah, Guy's a good. I know lots of Guys. So,
right.
And then I do come across people that refer like Guy better than Guy, but I think Guy is an English name, like from England.
You know? Yeah, I'm like I have a French name. I speak French, but a lot of English influence around me. You know, I would say I'm primarily English speaking. I speak French to my kids at home. My wife speaks English, right? My parents, you know, it's French, but other than that, it's English everywhere. Yeah.
I wish I could have more Spanish around me. I tried speaking Spanish with my kids their whole lives, and even sent them to Spanish school, and they can't speak a lick, or at least they tell me they can't. But it's tough. It's tough to keep it when you're not immersed, right?
Right. Well, that's exactly it, right? I try to learn Spanish. The same thing with the whole Duolingo app, and you know, you go away once a year to somewhere hot, and you know, you might use a few words and then forget it for a year, and then
you remember beer and you remember pretty and bathroom, and that's about it, right? Like
exactly.
So one of the things a lot of people out there might know you for, Guy, is your kind of social media, you know, involvement. You have been online, you do videos, you're on a pile of videos, and you've done work with like Weld.com and stuff too, which, you know, we've done work with Weld.com too. They're a good bunch of guys. Bo over there is one of the funnest people to hang out with in the world. And they're a good group of people working hard. You know, what made you decide to get into that whole aspect of the game, the video content, the online, and even working with groups like, for example, Weld.com?
Yeah, so it was initially it was so during COVID, our IT department, so basically the crew who takes care of events, there were no events during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So they had all this equipment and all this staff and no work. So what they did is they developed a program where they would go around to different programs and ask if they, you know, they want to film.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you want to film some of your content? We'll post it on this central site. It's called Media Site, and the whole college can access it. And we're going to have some educational content, right? Built by experts, you know, content experts. So
that makes sense. You got everything there, right?
Yeah, it started there, and you know, we started with opening up the toolkit for our students and going, you know, this is your square, this is your hammer, this is, you know, your brush, all that stuff. And then we got into, you know, you start the basics, oxy fuel, you know, MIG welding, stick welding, TIG welding. And then eventually I just started thinking about this, and one of our other teachers was working for Weld. They were working for Weld.com, and I'd asked them if they needed anybody, because I was sort of digging it. And I had I had deleted my Facebook off my account.
Mm-hmm. You're like done with it, yeah.
Yeah, I never used it. I've got LinkedIn, you know, that I might go on once every 3 months, and that was it. And then when I got on with them, it was sort of like, what's your handle, Guy? What do you mean? You know, what's your IG? I was like, well, what the hell is IG? Instagram, you know? And so I started there, and then I created 2 accounts. I created a TikTok. Actually, I created 3. I created a TikTok, I created an Instagram, and I created a YouTube. And started from my garage on the YouTube, doing that stuff that was kind of separate. And then it was just posting stuff that we were doing every day.
No.
And if you look at my content, a lot of it is just geared to my students and what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. What
we're doing on that day, what the lesson was, right? And a little clip. And so that's just been enjoyable. I've just been, you know, keeping with that. Still doing some stuff, because a lot of the content that Weld.com wants is little shorts. You know, they want that stuff. So they're asking you to post it on yours. They're posting it on theirs. We're all sharing. We're just a community. And yeah, the rest is history. Still having fun with it though.
It's amazing how COVID kind of pushed something that should have probably been around for a lot longer before. We have a tendency to like slow technology down ourselves. The tech nerds and the tech geniuses out there, they're miles and miles and miles and miles ahead of us. It's the people behind that are slow in activating it. We had all the tools. It's like welding machines. We've had arc force on welding machines since 1950. How many people know how to use arc force dial? You know what I mean? There's technology right there that makes literally your job easier right now, like today, if you know how to use that one stupid dial, and nobody does, right? And it's just a human's inability to accept these new parameters. And then we get something like COVID. We have internet, we have all this stuff, we have cameras, we have stuff. It's great your college actually came up with the idea to do it, because ours didn't. And some of us just did it on our own. So I ended up doing the same thing. We were in the middle of metallurgy when the world shut down. So I was like, screw it. I'm going to finish the rest of my metallurgy classes in my basement just with I got a phone, I got a tripod, I got a whiteboard. I actually took my whiteboard home from school, like an extra one we had in the back room. And I just did my final 4 lessons of metallurgy in my basement. And like I have them up on YouTube, and I still have people to this day being like, "Hey, I used your metallurgy video for my studying for my exam." It's like, really? Like, yeah, man, that was super handy. And it's like,
That's awesome.
how did we not do this 30 years ago? Like, why were we so late to the game that we needed COVID to be like, make shorts? Like, it's not hard. Make a 5-minute video on X. Kids love it. I love it. You love it. Like, I mean,
people resist. They resist. And I mean, don't quote me on this, but it's like, when did stick welding get introduced? Like, I know when it got introduced in like the 50s, but I think it started in the 20s maybe, or
yeah.
Don't quote me.
It was like 1908 the first time they did like electric arc fusion. Like, it was
okay. So like it took like 30 years, okay, because everybody resisted. Like rivets were king, and look at structures back then. There was a box, it was a square box.
The Eiffel Tower was one of the examples of like oxy-fuel and riveting. So that was like, okay, but that was like what, the 1600s, for crying out loud. Like I don't know, like.
So yeah, absolutely, people resist, and then it and then eventually now it's like, geez, you can't build a skyscraper without stick welding. You wouldn't have all these beautiful monuments, all these great designs if it wasn't for welding. These iron workers, they're building skyscrapers that.
I remember when Lincoln, well, I guess all the companies, they all came out with their version of like STT, surface tension transfer. Then like there's RMD with Miller, there's CTT with ESAB or whatever. CMT, sorry. No, that's Fronius has CMT. Whatever. Every company has their version of it, right? And I remember they brought this machine to the college where I was teaching, and it was brand new. And we're like, okay, let's try it out. What's the game here? Well, you can do like an open root weld in MIG, like basically like idiot free. Like you set it, there's no settings anymore. There's a 0 and there's a line. And if you go +0, your puddle's higher. If you go -0, puddle's deeper. Done deal. And I was like, okay, it can't be that. So I set it up there, and sure enough, you can rip these welds like nothing. Like, I mean, like literally nothing. Just right down the center, perfect, clean every time. Well, one of the tests on the Red Seal exam is an open root flat MIG test, right? And it's one of the most failed tests of all the Red Seal bends, because other than the tacks on your top tack on your vertical stick, your flat open root MIG, and then I think what's the other one? There's another one that gets failed. Like they're like the your blowout tack on your horizontal TIG. It's like the 3 most failed things for your Red Seal. And I'm thinking, okay, well, there's not much you can do to get around 60-10, other than learning to just weld better and do better tacks. Like that's life, right? But can I use this STT thing for my Red Seal MIG? So I bring it up to the instructors, and they're like, no. And I'm like, why not? Well, you can't use that technology on a Red Seal exam. That's breaking the laws. It's breaking the rules. You're supposed to be using short circuit to do an open root. I'm like, it's still short circuit. And they're like, well, maybe you're not allowed to use pulse or any technology. I'm like, Where does it say that? You know, it's like, so then I call up the apprenticeship board. I'm like, can I not use anything on like any tech on welding? They're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, there's literally machines coming out now that have a 60-10 root setting that stops you from blowing through, right? They have like the RMD, the Pipeworks Pros for Miller, have like a 60-10 push setting that lets you basically just pile a rod like an idiot and never burns through. Like, I mean, that's nice. You got STT and all these other companies that do hardwire open root without blowing through like an idiot. So can't I just use these settings on machines? And apprenticeship was like, as long as it's within the letter of the code, go hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then guess what? For the next like 3 years, I had like every welder pass every single test ever for Red Seal. And people are like, how are you doing it? It's like, we bought STTs, like we bought the new machines.
Yeah.
And then you got the old instructors that are being like, well, if you can't weld on an old 70s Hobart, then you're not a welder. Okay, I guess there's some truth to that. There is some truth to being able to pick up an old, you know, wheelie top mount machine and welding with it. But there's also something to be said about not resisting the technology and using it. If I can do a clean open root weld in short circuit every time and it bends every time, would you not want to use that the day you test for your Red Seal?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I don't care how good of a welder I am. I'll take the freebie. I'll take the for sure. You know what I mean? And it was like same with those 60-10s, like those RMD Pipeworks Pros. Like, man, can you run a sweeter 60-10 root? Have you ever used one of those?
I haven't.
Man, and
No.
you're a pipe welder, you're gonna love it. You go to it, yeah, it's got like a pipe setting. You know, you said it's a 60-10, 1/8. It asks you the type of metal. Are you doing this, or this, stainless, blah, blah, blah. And then you just like it's got the hot start, the pull back, the arc force all figured out for you. Like it's
Yeah,
like
we have that on some of our other equipment, right? It's just that it's just like Smart Mig or whatever it is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's stuff like that. It's exactly. It's just very intuitive. You know, you go through your settings, you plug in the material thickness and all that. But I sort of question those sometimes because it's like, you know, they're giving
it's not
me
what
a
I
setting.
like.
Well, no, but it's like they're giving me a setting that's just, I don't know,
Seems out there.
Yeah, on like 1/4-inch plate, you know, 135 amps with a 1/8 7018. I'm like, well,
yeah, it's a little hot.
That might be a little hot, right?
Well, that's something that we used to always talk about as instructors. It's like, what's your magic numbers? We all got our magic numbers in our heads, right? Like when you come up to a machine that you've never seen before, you got a magic number. So like for me, my 7018 1/8 magic number for all 4 positions. I don't care what position, I can run it 118. 118. I can
118?
run.
That's mine.
118. That's is it yours too?
That's mine. Yeah, 118.
Yeah, 118.
If I had to set it and I was doing all 4, you know, I mean, if I was doing a flat, I'd probably crank it a little bit.
But if you're not going to be able to go back to your machine,
exactly. Yeah, that's my setting.
I'm 118 and I set my arc force usually to about 30, 35. I like it a little bit on the lower end because I'll just long arc it if I got to push it. So, you know, like, I mean, I can just manipulate the rod. But I mean, I got a buddy who's his magic number is 125. And I'm like, for all 4? He's like, oh yeah. I'm like, that's hot. Like, I don't know if I'd want it that hot. You know, like.
Yeah, I mean, every machine's different. You know, I was in the booth, one of the booths the other day, and it was set to 106, and I was doing an overhead, and I was blowing through my backing bar.
Really?
Like, whoa, something's not calibrated here, right?
Yeah, so every ground or something, or bad return, I should say. Ooh, I said the bad word.
Oh,
it's
exactly.
It's not a ground, it's a return. Sorry, my bad.
Work return clamp.
Yeah, that's the return. That's about. I remember hammering that into students, being like, "Where's the ground? Right there. No, it's on the back of the machine. Going to the wall where the ground is." They're like, "Oh yeah, you're a jerk."
Well, believe it or not, though, like a lot of these new machines, we have a few of those Lincoln 300Cs, and they're multi-process machines, but they do everything. Like they do high frequency aluminum. They have all the smart pulse, like every setting for MIG pulse, precision pulse, all that stuff. And for some reason, the high frequency just like it's finicky. You know, your arc would be cutting out. You know, but
like mid weld.
Yeah, exactly. You know, a bunch of error codes. The second we ground it, because one machine wasn't grounded, like earth grounded. The second you earth ground it, all that kind of went away.
Yeah, that earth ground's pretty important for machines. Like I know that even in my garage, I didn't have a good earth ground, and basically I was told to just hammer like a 10 foot spike into the ground and like get like my box tied into it, and it seemed to help. I was like, that
Exactly. It's
that seemed like a really stupid idea, but it actually makes sense. Like a ground is ground, right? And if you don't have enough dump off, I guess it doesn't like it, especially on the newer machines where there's a lot less power for them to play with.
yeah,
Like
yeah, a
you
lot
look at
less power coming out to produce.
yeah, to
Exactly.
just cover the spread or whatever, you know what I mean? Because I have a little 220 TIG machine in my garage, and it's pretty finicky. When I go to the school and I punch into one of their 575s, and this big beast, and I feel like it just runs so much smoother. You know what I mean? Like, it's a $30,000 machine versus my $3,000 machine. Of course, it's gonna run differently. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly. Yeah, it's true though. I do work at home in the garage, and it's we don't have $30,000 machines in the garage, and it's
mm,
you're wiring it, and they want arc fault breakers that, like, you strike an arc and it trips the thing, and you're
yeah,
back up and down downstairs, and you got a dedicated 20 amp, and you're like, what's going on? And yeah,
yeah.
just give me the 575.
Yeah, just pipe it in. I don't know where it comes from, but pipe it in. Yeah. Well, actually, I got an old house, so we had to like jump two breakers to make one, so I had enough for a welder that wouldn't blow. It was a big
Oh,
mess.
really?
Yeah, so
Okay.
don't ever send a real electrician to look at my house. You'll have a heart attack. But
Yeah,
so
yeah.
so in terms of what you're doing now, like like you said you've been at the college for 9 years. You like doing the videos like online. Are you still actively, you know, doing videos? Are you still actively posting content? Are you doing it through the college? Whatever happened to the COVID program? Is that still running?
Yeah, it is. I mean, the with Weld, we've kind of slowed down a little bit, but I'm still posting stuff like that. A lot of my focus lately has been on curriculum. Like, believe it or not, Max, the all that focus group that you're a part of,
Yeah,
all those implementations are still taking place right now. So
awesome.
I've got a lot of work to, I'm just changing for right down to course descriptions, and I don't know if you remember all that stuff, but
The
mapping stuff
taxonomy,
out.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So it's all teacher stuff that we enjoy. Yeah,
Well,
but
it's good you're doing it though, because honestly, as someone who's really nerdy about that stuff, it really annoys me when there's not good lessons plans made, and you see poor lesson plans. It just sets teachers up for failure. Like,
exactly, you can do whatever you want as a teacher, but if you need to get a teacher to teach this course, you should have, everything should be lined up to say that this person can teach it. Doesn't
hmm
even have to use that textbook, but at least the requirements, the
hmm
CLRs and the vocational stuff and all
yeah.
that. So yeah, I've been really with a fine tooth comb. Me and one of the curriculum specialists were just dissecting that whole program, and just making it better, right? Changing a few
Awesome.
things, and yeah, so that's been my focus. But yeah, still doing content.
And then what about in terms of your teaching life? Like, do you see yourself at Algonquin where you are in the same position for a long time? You told me early on in the interview in the first half that you like change, you like adventure, you like new stuff. Well, 9 years teaching, I mean, teaching blinks by. I spent my 7 years or 8 years in a blink. But when I left, I felt like it was the right time for me to bounce, or else I would have been there forever. You know, um, are you feeling like at some point you may want to be looking for something else, or are you just loving
It's
what you're doing?
I'm loving what I'm doing. It's a good position. It's a good job right now. I think it's my job to find stuff and keep myself interested. Like
Hmm
I've been more focused too on skills this year because, like, we're back from COVID.
Yeah.
We went
And
out to
were you in
skills.
Winnipeg? Did I even see you there?
No, no, unfortunately I wasn't.
No.
Nobody placed, and yeah, we just didn't go out there. Would have been nice, but I'm looking for next year right now. I'm
Yeah.
prepping. Like,
Yeah.
we're just a 1 year program, certificate program, right? So we're going up
Yeah.
up against some heavy hitters, from
Oh
the
yeah.
UA, and
hmm
so we're doing our best to prep these our students and find two. And we're also going to enter the metal fab competition next year as well. So I'm on that
Nice.
committee. Yeah, I'm on that committee here in Ontario, so that'll be good. I might get some of the inside scoop. Um, they keep it
So
on.
so how would that even work? Like I have my metal fab ticket too. it's a dying science, man. And employers want it. Employers on one side are like, we need more fabricators. We need people that are good at math. We need people that can talk to engineers. But then on the other side of the coin, apprenticeship is saying that enrollments for metal fab are dropping through the floor. No one's signing up, and they're talking about canceling programs and getting rid of it as possibly a red seal altogether. Like, what do we do? Like, what do we do?
I don't know. Does it have to be one? Like, I, like traditionally,
Jim Galloway just brought this up at EdCon, like being like, why does it have to be one? Like what you just said. The millwrights, they have industrial millwright, like construction millwright, engineering millwright, electrician millwright. Why can't we have welder fab, electrician fab, blah blah blah, construction fab, and it's like I don't know. I don't know why I don't know what the problem is.
yeah, it's I mean, there's just so many avenues, right? And it's but again, we're trying to do the best we can with what we got. And I think this little metal fab project and skills is kind of more geared to what we're teaching right now. It's like grab a beam, you're coping it out, you're drilling, you're punching, things like that. You're beveling, you're doing nice tight fit ups, you're welding it up with flux core, as opposed to, this year's competition, I don't think anybody finished it. It was two great projects, but we're all the welders standing on the sideline. We're looking at it and we're like, "Whoa, those were difficult."
Yeah.
And so we're going to enter both. And but I think that metal fab is going to be well suited for us.
Yeah, and then the metal fab red seal doesn't even have a practical test. The red seal for metal fab is just a written exam. A lot of people don't even realize that. It's just 4 hours of math. Like,
yeah, yeah, it's true. It's things have changed, and things was very confusing in Ontario for a long time with apprenticeship, because I come from Alberta. Like I came where I did my apprenticeship, where it's just so well recognized. And I took a job in Ontario, and it was like, what's Red Seal?
yeah,
Where's your CWB tickets, right? And those are CWB tickets are great, but yeah, it just wasn't as recognized, and the path to becoming a welder is just a little bit different. So
yeah, it is. I have. I was bred out here in the West, and we have a way different look. And as soon as you hit Manitoba, it changes. Manitoba is like the dividing line. Like as soon as you hit Manitoba, it changes. And Quebec has like huge welding numbers, but they have their own program
yeah,
that does very well. They produce great welders, but it's completely unknown to like the rest of the country. We're like we don't
it
even
is
know.
unknown. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. I mean, Ottawa is really close to Quebec, so
Yeah.
it's like, and I taught in a Quebec school, but it's nice now because there's it's easier for students to come out of Quebec to get that Red Seal, basically an application.
It's like you have the
It's
CFQs or something. Or,
yeah. I'm not 100% familiar with it, but it's like, yeah, it's easier to, because I know a few people that did it. But yeah, their programs, their welding programs are like, students are ready when they're coming out.
Yeah. So Ontario, I feel, is going to be one of the tougher markets. Mainly, I think size. It's so big, like geographically, you got so much space to cover. So by the time you get to from northwest to southeast, it's like forget about it. They're talking a different language, like completely. And then in the southeast, southwest, you have such a tight population that you have like multiple school districts, multiple colleges, all in the same areas, all teaching different things. Some colleges you have to have a red seal before you can even be a teacher. Some colleges you don't.
Yeah.
Some colleges you need a teaching certificate. Some you don't. So it's like, what's happening? It's just like the Wild West.
Yeah, it's true. Thankfully, for me, it's been a good experience, and it's been, I know that path. But yeah, there's some teachers I know, to get full time, they're looking for that Red Seal and stuff like that. But even in other programs, like some of the credentials are just like, you need a PhD to teach welding math. Like, because we don't teach our math, right?
Yeah.
It's the math department who takes care of that. So
Yeah, it's the same, I think, in almost every college. Yeah.
yeah, and that's, I mean, you know from experience, that's got to be a challenge, because it's,
You got to book
they're
it
not,
in, and you got to find the time. And if they don't have, I remember for the Red Seal, I taught the Red Seal program. I required 10 hours of math throughout the 7 weeks. and then you try to find a math teacher to just come in for 10 hours to teach math. But you want them to teach trades math, not like
Exactly.
not egghead math. It's different. Like we need trades math, like relative training math that's relative to this skill set. And that was so hard to find that curriculum, like to figure out what that would look like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We hired some people from Alberta that were teaching apprenticeship math, but it was like we had teachers who would we have a textbook that's assigned to that course. It's called Math for Welders.
Mm-hmm.
And the teachers would toss that book and teach their own stuff. It was like, whoa, let's get back to the fractions, the stuff that they actually need, the geometry and
Yeah.
like it's all in there. It's just the right teacher. So
And what about curriculum? Like, are you guys using the CWB stuff, or do you guys use your own stuff, or ILMs, or what are you guys using?
yeah, we're using ILMs right now, and we're using some of our own curriculum. But we're always open to change. It's just been I have good luck with those ILMs. I like them. They're small booklets. Some of the content can be short in it or thinned out, and that's
Mhm.
where we come in with our own with our own stuff. I've been teaching a lot from like world or real life experience. Like, let's look at an article here. Let's get
Yeah,
on to the
yeah.
fabricator. Like you can read slides from home. Let's look at let's look at why people fail a make test,
Yeah.
right? Or let's look at some arc shots and see what's going on. And
Was the ILMs there before you were there, or did you bring the ILMs with you from Alberta?
I brought
Just
them in.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just curious because outside of Alberta, I never see anyone use or like the ILMs unless they got taught on the ILMs.
Yeah, when I taught in Quebec, we were using them over there,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's sort of just kind of what. Yeah, it's my just personal, and I get it. A lot of people are, if they didn't learn from it,
No, I got
but
mine right there. Like, I mean, I learned initially on the ILMs, and before that, like it was the Welding Industry of Canada, the WIC books. I mean, that's going way back. Um, but I was happy to get off the ILMs because they have been around forever, forever. And I learned on them and used them. But then as a teacher, when the opportunity came to get off the ILMs, I took it, even though it was a big open void after. Because then it's like, well, then what? So then it was like, well, then, like, I mean, obviously, Sass Poly, we had developed our own stuff, but then who developed it, from which campus? Then teachers fight each other. That's not how it's done, and there's that whole who wrote this line here? I don't agree with this. It's
oh
like
boy.
no one's ever happy, right? Like no one's ever
Well, a welder. It's
Yeah.
like, and that's why I'll never say you can't do it this way.
Yeah.
It's just because I bet you that guy's been doing it for 20. Like I watched a video and they're welding an open root but dragging it up, and it was working.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
for me that just doesn't make sense.
No.
But it works, with the right tweaking, the right settings, and it went in beautifully. But and that's why it's like, welding's a lot like handwriting. Everyone's got their own. But
Yeah.
as an educator, I think it's my job to be able to make reference to something.
Yeah.
An
Outside
ILM,
of yourself. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like I can give my experience as a welder, but it's like let's look what the textbook says. Let's just see if it's right.
Yeah. Do you
Or
use
let's
like modern welding, or what's the other one? There's a couple, metal and fabrication, I think it's called. There's modern
yeah
welding.
the
Oh yeah, welding and metal fabrication. Yeah, those are like the two main textbooks I see out there.
yeah there was the Larry Jeffis. It was actually
Yeah,
welding and fabrication techniques.
yeah, that's that one. Yeah.
Yeah, the blue book. That's what when I came in, that's what we were using, and then
I
we
mean, those
went
are
to
good books. They're American, but they're good. Yeah.
yeah, I would just take the part out on welder qualification, or they call it certification or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
So yeah.
And whatever weird measurements they use for like weighing things, like the tensile strength on this was 75 elephants long or whatever. Like, come on, guys, metric, metric.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, now, what do you got planned for the summer? Like, you got summer's coming off. Or are you going to be doing curriculum design all summer? Are you going to be putting hours in, or what's the plan?
Yeah, I will be. I mean, I'm Swifted for it. Swift is our sort of like I
Time
don't know
allocation, yeah.
exactly, yeah. And so I'll be working on that, but because our program runs for, a full calendar year,
Hmm.
I'm plugged in the summertime. So the other two full-time teachers, they take the summers off, and then I get time off in the winter. But I like it in the summer. You know what?
Yeah,
There aren't that many post-secondary programs running. Apprenticeship stops.
that's right.
We teach, believe it or not, like we teach a lot of apprenticeship at Algonquin, but unfortunately we don't teach the welder apprenticeship.
Hmm.
The nearest place is Cornwall, and they own the rights to it. So the ministry has deemed that there's not enough apprentices in the area. So, but yeah, it's nice. It's quiet. It just goes well in the summertime, and then come fall, it all the influx and that, and then I'll work the fall, and then I'll take off in January for a month, and we'll be back at her again. Coming
Awesome.
back for another rotation, wash, rinse, and repeat.
Yeah, yeah. A whole bunch of fresh new faces to work with. That'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And what about content stuff? Like, are you ever going to do some content for us here at CWB? Can we slate you in for a video shoot or what? What's going on?
Nobody's asked. I've
What?
been, you know what? I almost reached out to you for this podcast, but Daniela, she's sweet. She found me on Instagram. It's like, hey, what are you doing? I don't know. What are you doing?
What's up? You up?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember me, Max, but I remember you from a while ago when we go to the educators conference out in Alberta.
Yeah,
There's
we
a few
sat
of
at
them out
we sat at the
east.
table together in Edmonton, I believe. You, me, and another guy,
Um,
bigger set
Jeez.
guy. Remember him with the beard?
Yes, I can't remember his name though.
Yeah. See, and I remembered you, but I couldn't remember your name 'cause I'm terrible for names.
Yeah, yeah. It's just I just love that community. I
Yeah.
love seeing people, because we actually mix in with the high school teachers as well, right? And
Hmm.
they feed off us, we feed off them a little bit, and yeah,
And
it's good.
you didn't go to the EdCon this year in Hamilton there?
No, it's things have just been yeah, less funding, I think, and
Yeah.
it's just hopefully next year though,
Yeah, we got
maybe
to see
put
where
in
it
for
is.
it.
Yeah, we got to see. What about Moncton and New Brunswick here in October? What are you doing?
That I could put in for.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have we just had meetings this morning, but the information for Canwell is going to be coming out in the next couple weeks. So
I haven't.
October 17th, 18th, 19th, Moncton, New Brunswick. You heard it
Okay.
here first, podcasters. You heard it here
Okay.
first.
I haven't
Po-
been to Canaweld since Montreal.
Oh, really? No, it should be.
Yeah.
It's being where it is, Moncton. It's going to be a smaller one, but those small ones sometimes are the best ones. You know what
Oh,
I
for
mean? Because
sure. For
it's a
sure.
tight group. We're still going to get the same 200 people out that we get every time. 300 people, and it's going to be in a smaller area. We already got like the hotel block set up. We're already talking to the colleges out there for a college tour and some fun stuff. So
I'm gonna look into this. Absolutely. I'm stoked.
awesome.
Yeah, it's
Awesome,
good.
buddy. Well, I know that, Daniela did reach out to you and she was like, "Do you know Guy?" And I was like, "I feel like I know him. I've met him before, but I don't know if he's going to remember me. So I'm glad you remembered me." But I'm usually pretty easy to remember because I have a big mouth and I'm always running around screaming at the top of my lungs, which I probably what I was doing the last time you met me. So
Well, you did some really good talks on hydrogen and stuff like that, and
yeah.
metallurgy, like because that's like right up my alley. I taught with Mick Pates a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, Mick's a genius.
We co-taught metallurgy at Algonquin for many years, so
Hmm.
I learned a little bit from there, and that's yeah, so it was good.
Yeah, that's my jam. I love that metallurgy deep stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've got an engineer teaching it now at our school, so I got bumped out.
Oh, that's no fun. What does he know?
What does he know?
All right, buddy. Well, this has been an awesome interview. I've had a lot of fun with you, and I hope I get to see you soon. I know that we are always looking at filming and stuff. So if you are interested, I can pass that on to a little birdie that I know. So
Yeah, it's
and you're
hey,
not
these a new opportunity, right? It's
yeah, and you're not far from like home base. Like usually we're looking for people that are not too far from the mothership. So I mean, I'm the farthest from the mothership, so
Yeah, maybe I'll tag along with Josh a little bit and with the foundation and
yeah.
see what we can do.
Awesome. Is there any shout outs or anything you want to send to anybody? Any hellos to anybody?
Geez, you're putting me on the spot now. Well,
I am.
maybe I should plug myself, right?
Yeah, plug yourself. Yeah.
Sewing with Fire Welding. You can check me out on Instagram and on TikTok as well, a little bit on YouTube. But you know what? My two young girls would probably love to hear me say hello to them. So hello, Talis and Eris. Bonjour, Talis, puis Eris. So thanks, Max. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. And just the last thing before I let you go is, give us a little bit of information about how people can sign up for your program. What's going on at Algonquin? How do they find your program, and how would they sign up if they're interested in welding out there?
Okay, so if you're interested in welding, it's a very demanding program. We have 2 intakes. We have a spring, which starts in May, and we have a fall, which starts in September. So right now, if you're to try and get into September, it might be pretty tight. You'll be put on the waiting list. So you have to apply through the Ontario colleges, just like any standard certificate diploma program that you would. You're going to apply to a few different schools. Hopefully, choose Algonquin. But if you're to start doing your work right now, you would definitely get in for spring 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to wait it off some more, fall 2024.
Okay. And it's hard to get in. It's like usually pretty waitlisted, pretty tight.
I should say it's hard to get in if you're not ahead of time.
Right.
If you're not applying ahead of time, if you're kind of a last minute, then you might struggle a little bit. So
awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate the information and you taking the time. Like you said, Sewing with Fire online on the IG, because that's what apparently the cool kids say. And and I look forward to seeing you and working with you again. Hopefully, you can come out to Moncton. But definitely, if you're not in Moncton, you'll be at the next EdCon. I'm at all of them. I'd never miss one. And maybe maybe I'll speak at one of them again. I'll be down at FabTech in September. I don't know if you ever do any of the FabTechs, but I'll be down in Chicago in September if you're going to be down there. So
put that one on the list too. Then any others?
I
love to travel.
Well, if you're going to come down to FabTech, that's a good one because it's huge and there's a lot of all the stars are there, all the famous people.
Yeah, all the red beard and
all the people that are actually cool. So
no, we're making it better up here.
Yeah. Well, we know Canadian welders are the best. We know that's why they love us. So, all right, buddy. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks so much for taking your time to be with me here today. And for all the people that have been following along online, make sure you keep downloading, sharing, getting the word out there, and comment on the videos, please. We're always checking to see what you guys have to say about our content. We love to hear recommendations. We love to hear, who you think should be on the show and what you love about the shows, or even what you don't like about the shows. We take it all in. We got lots of stuff rolling out on our websites. Always check out CWBAssociation.org. It's free membership. We got free training programs, free schooling, free scholarships, bursaries, stuff for your locations, and volunteer with your local chapter to help the community grow strong. All right. So see you in the next episode and take care.
We hope you enjoyed the show.